Now starting. Welcome. Bringing Java into the open, the quickie talk. So I'll make it quick. I'm Heather VanCura. I've been involved with the Java community for 18 years now, from back in the Sun Microsystems days, and involved with the Java community process. So looking back over the last 23 years of Java, I have a unique perspective on why is it that after 23 years, Java remains the #1 programming language and has grown to have over 12 million Java developers all over the world running on billions of devices, and now optimizing our technology to focus on the cloud as the market has shifted there. Unique opportunity to look back over the history and think about what it is about Java that's so special and unique that has put us in this position, and how can we continue to be there in the future, and how can you get involved in where the direction's going. The JCP plays a critical role in that, but working together with the rest of the community. So from the start of the beginning times back in the 90s, the philosophies of Java have remained pretty consistent, which is completeness of the platform, a big focus on quality and security, and also modernization and keeping up with the needs of developers. And we do that primarily through the collaboration with the Java development community. There is no other technology that's developed in quite the same way that Java is, with that active ecosystem involvement that's not about any one vendor, but about the whole ecosystem of tools, libraries, IDEs, and language, JVM languages that have grown up around that one singular technology, Java. And a big part of that is the foundation that Java is built on, the infrastructure of the Java community process. So the JCP is really the formalization of the informal process that was used since the very beginning of time back in 1995 to really bring in that community developer perspective into the language so that we really were meeting the real world developer needs. And we have, of course, seen over the last year or so quite a bit of change in the ecosystem. And so this is a great opportunity to bring you up to speed on the things that have changed, what's staying the same, and where we're headed in the future. But before I do that, I have a few slides that just a reminder of how the JCP works and the foundation that it supplies. To start with, the JCP is run as an organization, so I'm the chairperson of the Java community process, but I run the JCP with the oversight of an executive committee. So that's like our board of directors, and that's made up of 25 members of the community. We have a diversity of the community, so we have vendors such as Oracle, IBM, and Red Hat, but we also have customers who are using Java technology in-house, so banks like Goldman Sachs and Credit Suisse, and also companies like Twitter are on the board, as well as a couple of Java user groups, which provide that unique community perspective in terms of what are the real world developers doing and what are their needs and how do we continue to evolve the technology to meet their needs. So a couple of Java user groups, and then passionate individual Java developers who are out there advocating for the technology, traveling to conferences and finding out how we need to move and adapt to meet the needs of the ever-changing landscape of software development. But the real work of the JCP is done by the community, so it's done in the JSR expert groups. So that's where the really heavy lifting is done. So that's the spec leads that are leading JSRs, it's the expert group members who are working with them as they lead the projects, and it's community members like yourselves who are giving input and feedback to the drafts as they're developed. So the executive committee works to support this development effort. We meet every month or so, and sometimes face-to-face, just to make sure that we take a look at the things that are evolving in the community. So we look at how we can evolve the JCP governance and structure overall. We review the work of the JSRs that are being done in the working groups, the JSR expert groups. And we also look at different things happening in the marketplace. So we look at adoption, we look at what's happening with the Java user groups, we look at how we can enable broader participation as the community of developers has grown. And that's happening all around the world. So part of my job is to come and talk to developers at conferences and bring that feedback so that we ensure that we're not meeting the needs of just one very narrow specific group. And Devoxx is a great opportunity to engage with many different parts of Europe. So I always enjoy the opportunity to come and hear from you. Every JSR is done through a same development life cycle. So as I mentioned, that's the heavy duty lifting of the work of the JCP. It happens in the expert groups with as little oversight and heavy governance by the executive committee. We try to make it lightweight, and we're looking to even evolve this even further, which is I'll go over a little bit later in the presentation. But we're different from a traditional standards body because we have code, and we have a specification, and we have the test suite. So those are the three parts that every Java technology specification delivers. So for example, the reference implementation for Java SE is OpenJDK, but as part of the JSR specification, we also have that specification. So the specification, the reference implementation, and a test suite. And those three things working together enable that active ecosystem that I talked about. So we're allowed to have compatible implementations, not just one choice with one reference implementation, but multiple implementations of the same specification. And that's really what has helped to grow the entire ecosystem. The documentation of the specification, the reference of the code, and then the test suite allowing other members of the community to develop their own implementations and then go to market with those and give you as Java developers that choice. So in the JCP, we work on these new revisions of the platform, we work on evolving the governance overall, and we look at how can we increase participation from the community. So just to give you a brief look at some of the platform work that's been happening, the JCP released Java EE 8 in September 2017. That's the last version of Java EE that's currently available. That was developed in the open with a reference implementation of Glassfish. It's currently being transitioned to the Eclipse Foundation. So Java EE moving forward is transitioning to the Jakarta EE working group, and it's called, main project moving forward will be called EE for J. The open source implementation, reference implementation for Java SE platform is OpenJDK. It will continue to be developed through the JCP with the primary work of the expert group and community contributors happening in OpenJDK, but some major things changing there in terms of moving to a faster release cadence of every 6 months, which you're probably already aware of, versus multiple years, introducing modularity, and also a difference in the support structure. So moving to a long-term support release model starting with JDK 9. So that also, you're seeing a lot of announcements here this week, different choices continuing to be available to the Java developer community, and all kind of feeding up through OpenJDK into the JCP. So you're still going to continue to have the specification, the reference implementation, and the test suite, which allows all those different vendors to be able to offer you different choices in the implementation of Java SE. In addition, the Oracle JDK is transitioning. So Oracle's announced that they are open sourcing the commercial features that used to be part of the Oracle JDK. So now we're seeing OpenJDK with those additional features from the previously commercialized features in JDK, in OpenJDK. So we've had several major releases over the last year, which is new for Java. That's one of the biggest changes. So rather than having to wait 3 years, we had the release of JDK 9 back in 2017, and that introduced modularity, which offered over 100 new features over Java 8. And And at that time, we announced that it was going to be happening, that we were moving to this model of releases every 6 months. And it was delivered on that with JDK 10. That was developed as JSR 383 and released back in March of this year. So Java 10 was the first release where we moved from the idea of having a major new feature that we were targeting, and we would wait until it was ready, whether it took 2, 3, 4 years. But we targeted having whatever was ready to be shipped in that train release model was going to be ready to go in 6 months. So we ended up having 12 enhancement proposals with JDK 10 back in March. And then we went ahead and moved forward with a JDK 11, which was developed as JSR 384. JDK 11 is the last official release, so it's the current release of Java SE. So OpenJDK is now at JDK 11. It initially thought it was going to have 4 JEPs that were targeted as through OpenJDK, but it actually ended up having 17 JEPs. So the new model calls for JEPs to be targeted and put into the release only when they're ready. But as we move forward, of course, if you're wondering what's coming next, there's been lots of talks here this week, but the JSR for Java SE 12 is already in development. It's close to finalization now at this point. JSR 386, Java SE 12, so that will be released in March of 2019. But we still have all of the different projects that you've probably become fond of if you're a Java developer. So back when we had the releases, for instance, for SE 8, the big feature release that people were excited about was lambdas and streams. And then, of course, for Java 9, it was modularity. But the community is now transitioning so that we had for 10 and 11, it was whatever JEPs out of these projects that are currently being worked on in the OpenJDK community. Once they're ready, they're going to be folded into those feature releases available on OpenJDK as early access builds, so you can download them in advance and know what you're going to be getting. But a great way for you to participate is to actually go ahead and look at some of these projects that are currently open and being worked on. If you're interested in getting involved in any of these projects, join the mailing list and suggest ways that maybe you want to contribute. And as those things are ready, they'll be rolled into the platform releases moving forward on a 6-month cadence basis. So the second thing we're doing is looking at how we're going to change the structure of the JCP. This is really how we continue to ensure that the community is open and how we've been able to continue to meet the needs of developers. So we have an effort called JCP.next. First, we focused on transparency, so making sure that everything is available in the open for any developer who has an interest to see the working group that's happening, their issues in the issue tracker, their discussions, as well as their drafts as they're being developed. I mentioned early we looked at how to minimize the oversight of the executive committee, make sure we're lightweight and lean and agile, so merging the executive committees down into one, reducing the number of seats. And also looking at how we can increase more participation and move faster. So as things have changed from 3 or 4 years between Java releases to every 6 months, how can we move from more of that waterfall style milestones that we had in the JSR development process to one that's more agile and in keeping with that continuous delivery model of software delivery? So first, we looked at really broadening our membership. What is it that prevents developers from getting engaged in the program? So we looked at the things that we could do to eliminate all of those barriers. And what we ended up doing was having membership levels. So instead of one size fits all, we have multiple levels for people to participate in the community process. And then in the latest effort, we're looking at how can we really streamline that JSR life cycle from the graphic I showed you earlier. So eliminating some of those concrete static milestones and really opening up until more of a continuous delivery draft development and having just the one open review period with a vote by the executive committee before it's finalized. So that really helps to eliminate some of the oversight burden on both the spec lead as well as the community as we're trying to move faster and keep up with those milestones. So that's set to be finalized next month in December, a leaner JCP, making the process and the community even more open than it was before. But there's still ways that I want to leave you with in terms of how can you participate. So we want to continue to enable that participation from you. So if you haven't engaged in either OpenJDK or the Java community process, I encourage you to take a look at it, either as an individual or even better, part of a team, whether you gather a group of experts from inside your company or you work with your Java user group to help each other and discuss your feedback and then actually deliver it back to the project leaders. So the spec leads or your Java user group leader, encourage you to give us that feedback, because working together, what we found is that we can achieve much more, either through a Java user group or through your employer, either getting involved in the JCP or getting involved in your local Java user group or joining the mailing list on OpenJDK. So one of the great benefits of getting involved with your Java user group is we actually work together with the user group and help promote their involvement and give some worldwide visibility to some of the Java user groups who have really engaged and given their contributions back to the community. So I encourage you to get involved. You can follow the JCP online, how to join, as well as follow us on social media. Twitter is jcp_org. I will be having a BOF tonight if you want to come back for questions. So my BOF's at 7 o'clock. Or you can also engage with me down in the booth area. I'll be in the Hacker Garden. And tonight, look forward to talking with you for any questions, or on Twitter, I'm Heather VC. Thank you.